Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on, good question, October 22nd, 2022 at approximately 3:45 p.m. PST. Good afternoon, Nightmare. Glad you can make it. Yes, you are absolutely the first one in. I believe that means that you get the gold medal in this case. Trying to get things organized can be, to say the least, incredibly challenging for me. But we'll see how that goes. Still trying to work things out. I got looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, the world is a mess. But I figured out a few things about it. And I've ended up tying things together at this point. Okay, as you well know, I am writing the Yldrbac Chronicles. But I'm looking at this other little problem that we've got, which is the communication gap and this whole thing of racial differentiation that mankind is going through. And I'm thinking, what better way to tie this storyline off, return to paradise, than by looking into where the real hiccups are where it comes to communication lines. Now, technology is a wonderful thing, but unfortunately, people have got so tied up with different races and what have you. And I used to get very, very sidetracked with going like they're not all different races. Well, they are. Your black people, your Orientals, your North American Indians, the East Indians, they're all different races, but they're all the same species. Now, when we take a look at the way the world is going, people are so hung up on these differences, and now they're adding new ones. I couldn't believe it the other day. I read up, there's a new set of doctors coming out. They've actually come up with some of them have come up with 5 different genders for the human race. Bad news, people. There's only 2. Now, I don't care about the minor differences, but if we start splitting hairs the way we are, if we continue to split hairs the way we are, we're going to run into some even bigger problems than we're already aware of. Now, so I got looking into it. Where are the hiccups? What is causing the problem? Well, what's causing the problem is we're finding new and exciting ways to separate each other. To say, oh, I'm different than you are. Well, at the current pace, we can all of a sudden have a different gender if it's how you relate. Bearing in mind that about a month ago, the human population on Earth balanced out at just about 8 billion people. And with the speed that people are finding new ways to say, hey, I'm a different gender because I do not relate to this. I do not identify like this. The path they're currently on, we are going to end up with 8 billion different genders in the human race. Okay, now this may sound ludicrous, but that's the road people are going down. Okay, just take a look at the evidence before you. Don't take my word for it. Okay, but what I figured was, okay, I've got to take a look at how this is all coming together. And while I was doing this, I came across an interesting situation. When we realize that if we focus on the similarities between people instead of the differences, we will have a lot better maneuverability. We will have a lot more peace on this planet. Although somehow I question whether the majority of people, no, I really don't. The majority of people desire peace. The massive majority of people in existence are really decent people. Unfortunately, the ones that have gained the real footings are the ones that have, shall we say, limited perspective. At least in my eyes. Now, understand, everything I say, everything, is my personal take on it, my personal opinion. Okay, do I have proof of a lot of it? Absolutely not. What I do have is an incredible amount of what is it called now? Circumstantial evidence. Okay. With people looking at each other going, oh, you dress a little differently, therefore, therefore you're not as good as I am. Or you wear your hair a little differently, therefore you're not as good looking as I am or as beautiful as I am. Okay. I do like this shirt that my son gave me for Father's Day, right? My people skills are just fine. It's my tolerance for idiots that needs work. Okay. And to me, an idiot is somebody that is quite literally, it's got nothing to do with intellectual capacity. It's got to do with wisdom levels. Okay, the thing is, the majority of people desire the world, desire the civilization and society itself to change, but they themselves do not seem willing to make that happen in their own life. Okay, and this is where we run into the problem. So what I've been doing now, I've talked about getting rid of the junk in your life, getting rid of the clutter. Okay. And one of the things I did there, a while back, I wrote a section in the stories. I knew I'd written it. Wonder if I can find it right here. And the answer to that would apparently be no. It is in here. Oh, wait a minute. I think that's why. If we go over to here. Of course, now I can't find what I'm looking for. This stands to reason. There we are. Now, I've written a section. I've been checking my soft copies for a section I had written. Okay, in the Yldrbac Chronicles about one section where the main character Jeremiah ended up on a space station. There's a whole lot of reasoning behind that, but I couldn't find it anywhere in my soft copy, and I knew I'd written it. So I got looking through old pages, and lo and behold, what I finally found was this. The hard copy that had never been moved to soft copy. YJ, how you doing? Glad you can make it. So now what I'm looking at, okay, is I've gone through, because I need the figures now to really get into meshing things together. Okay, so what I did was I went through the figures, and people have asked me about different characters I'm working on. Right, so now I'm starting to bring them together. So I've just got figures to work with. Now, I certainly don't expect you guys to remember all of these people. That's 5, 6, 7. Not sure which one that one is. So I got to take a look at them. I'm still working them out. But the reality when it comes to writing a lot of what I do, right, is I take a look at the different characters that I've got. Okay, and try finding figures that I can work with. So at this point, I've got Blade. Okay, I don't expect you to remember this in all fairness. It boils down to an issue of figuring them out so I can work things out. We have Blade, and this worked out nicely. Not quite right, but for a figure, it works. We got this one for Jeremiah. We have this little chap here, and that would be Mickey. Then we have Wilhelm here, aka a sniper. And these again are just figures. The reality of it is, I don't know where to get figures. Yeah, YJ, I created a monster. I should tell you about it. You know what, and this is very much from your standpoint. You know what? Obviously, the elementals are. earth, earth, water, air, and fire. Well, I added a fifth one. Okay, and ended up creating one that is just absolutely horrendous to deal with. But it is not for weak characters because it will kill them. Now, here's a bizarre question for you. Okay, like these are the different characters I've got that I'm dealing with. Oh, yes. Then we have Tanya. And then, let's see, what do we got here? I've got something mixed up, obviously, and this is why I've got to figure them out solidly. But I've got 7 characters I'm working on there. But here's the thing. Yeah, at this point, that is something that is extremely important from my standpoint. Now, I'm talking about the similarity between racial and species, and species equality. Now, we've talked about racial as in if you're black, you're still the same value as if you're white. But here's the neat part about it. We take a look at these people, and I keep getting asked, why is it that the ancient the UFOs, that the aliens won't show themselves en masse? Well, think about it. Okay, you see, if you're a Caucasian, most people, they see a Caucasian person over 7 feet tall, they're somewhat intimidated. If you happen to be Caucasian and the individual is black or Oriental, and yes, there are 7-foot Orientals, people get agitated, they get edgy with somebody that stands out in a physically different fashion. Picture what happens if you take a reptilian, okay, or better yet, okay, now take a look at this one. Where are we here? Take a standard sized person. He's crouching. Let's take a standard sized person. Okay. Now there's a standard sized human. Now watch what happens when we compare them to an Anunnaki. Okay. Whoop, I'm gonna hurt myself that way. Where are we? Here we go. Yes, I got these guys all over the place. Now, this might explain why the off-worlders don't show themselves en masse. Let's see here. Let's see if that works. See, this one here is a standard sized human. Okay. Now, if you take a look at that and you go, there's an Anunnaki. Can you see why they don't show themselves? They don't show themselves en masse and just show up. Can you see what kind of panic we may have if you're looking at that? Now, I mean, some Anunnaki are shorter, some are taller. Okay. Yes, by human standards, this would qualify as a giant, obviously. Okay, now I think I ended up with something. Yep, look at that. Now I finally figured out how to do this, so I don't have to go looking for it. Now I just gotta wait long enough for it to kick in so I can shut off the monitor. And there we go. Yeah, well, that's just it. The thing is, YJ, where it comes to this idea of being a spectrum, there are, quite seriously, as far as I'm aware, there are no pure Africans, pure Oriental, pure Germans. They are all a mix at this point. if they're 6.5 feet tall, there's another race that looks very similar to the Greys. I got to look into that because your tall Greys, the controllers, from my experience, are hit about the 5 foot mark, right? Whereas the scientists, the little Greys, if you will, right, the Zeta Reticulans, are only 3.5 to 4. But there is another race. Now, when you're talking about, if there are very tall, what are we talking about? The Yldrbacs are the tall blue that you're talking about. I suspect, anyway. Okay, but rest assured, there are a staggering number of races out there. Okay, now don't take my word for it by any stretch, but the reality of it is that many of these races are, like, as far as humans go, humans are a mixed breed now. It's not a question of being only one nationality or only one race. They are now mixed across the board. Okay. Oh yeah, well that'll completely, that can completely throw you off track. If you've got, if you're on medication, height, I mean, for me, measuring height is a little bit of a problem to start with. The reason I know their height is because, from my standpoint, is simple. I'm 5'8", and they only come up to about here, making them around the 5 foot mark. Okay. But what I've done is I've started piecing together the different races and the different figures to really try and make things a little bit more involved. Okay. But what I've done with the Yldrbacian Chronicles, I'm including a lot of the information that we've got. I should probably not sit that far back. What do you think? A lot of the information I know of and the people talk about, where we talk about soulmates, twin flames, soul families, reincarnation, these concepts I cover in the early parts of the Yldrbacian Chronicles. Okay, you're seeing some of them now coming out in book 12. Okay, book 10 and 11, which is the birth of the wolf pack and the end of an epoch. Okay, we just laid down the situation. Book 12, Return to Paradise, we're going into more of that interactive side of it and discussing some of these bizarre concepts, while I'm working out how to lay down a foundation, because this is the thing we're missing right now. The majority of people seem to have done a very simple thing. They've forgotten about mankind's humanity. They've forgotten about how to care for each other and how to communicate with each other. And if we don't straighten this out, we have a major problem coming up. And no, sorry to say, well, no, I'm really not. Humans are not going to be, God's not going to come down and go, let's make it all better. Everybody, shake hands. You were given free choice. You were given free will. What you weren't given was freedom of consequence. Okay, therefore, it is up to mankind to decide whether or not they're going to start communicating properly, whether they're going to start working together. But it's up to you guys. And no, the other side of that, I was asked, somebody asked me the other day, why, if the aliens are so interested in us, why don't they come down and solve this problem? Well, they could, but you wouldn't like the way they do it. Okay, what I have taken to doing, though, I'll show you something else. Let's see. See, here's another. Well, that one's got a missing hand, but that's okay. Here again, it's a giant. I've been working on. Okay, and again, this is the thing with the Anunnaki. Okay, you're looking at people that are this tall, and this one will be a shorter one. Okay, but as you can see, I've been working on the painting on many of these things. What is that? Oh, okay. I'm thinking of taking them, and what do you think? Okay, I'm looking at all of this, all the upper, and I don't know if you can see it, but all this upper metal, I'm looking at turning that all silver colored, because I don't have steel color. I'm thinking that would work quite nicely. Yeah, if we do not, and the thing is, when we're talking about helping each other, okay, this is the thing, and I made this mistake. Okay, when my mom's estate came in, I tried helping a lot of people by going, here's some money to help you straighten it out. It didn't work for a single one of them. Okay, and put me into a bit of a bind. So I will tell you, helping each other does not mean giving money necessarily. The real catch is to make absolutely certain that you turn around when you're going to help somebody, that you turn around and help them in a way that actually is functional. Now, there's an old saying that goes, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. Well, what I did with the money was I gave people money, and it worked for a very short period of time, and they're back right where they were. Okay, if you teach people how to actually make money work, and I don't mean when you've got $40,000-$50,000, I mean now, when you've got $3 to your name. That's where people need to start, is taking care of the little tiny bits. Okay, it's the same as this issue of communication. People have forgotten how to communicate. Now, a few years back, a friend of mine was in connection with somebody in England, and this particular publishing company had run into a problem. Their internal communication system collapsed. So, of course, they phoned up very excited and went, we developed a new form of communication, right? They called it the WASI system. Okay, it's called WASI mail. Now, we know what mail is. A lot of people call it snail mail. We know what what your email is. Well, WASI mail was simply walk and say it. Okay, and this is what people have forgotten, is how to communicate, how to put their phone down and talk to the people around them. Okay, so what I'm looking at here now, yes, I'm on the other side of the room right now. I think this will work quite nicely. So I grab that. While I'm talking, it seems reasonable to get some of this mess sorted out. And like I said, we'll put this over here because, well, frankly, it doesn't make sense to me to pour paint into a bin on top of a computer. I can just see a problem happening here. So I figure if I do this, then I can get the paint here. Forgot to grab a paintbrush. Okay. The reality when we're looking at life is we have to look at the strengths of other people, okay, and work with them. I am not what you would call a functional, I do not have a functional talent where it comes to marketing. Okay, and if I keep telling myself that, I will undoubtedly keep remembering it. So it's probably a bad idea to keep telling myself that. So I think we'll go the other route. Okay, and just start telling myself, much like I did with my memory for names. When you're looking at communication, it is absolutely critical that you are straightforward and clear with your intentions. Okay, do not make the mistake of either hinting at where the problem is in your eyes, or worse, assuming that somebody is going to automatically know what you're thinking or what you're referring to. Very seldom do people actually piece it all together. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I figure while I'm talking to you, I might as well get some of this done because I've got to get it done anyway. I keep putting it off. But when we're looking at communication, at the real link between people, we have to remember that everybody has a strength, everybody has a weakness, and it is a combination of all of that that is going to make things work. Okay. Now, from my standpoint, like I'm looking at this going, okay, this should work nicely. And now we'll just turn all of this into metal plates. Do I want metal or do I want heavy leather? What do you think, guys? I'll leave that sit and see if I get any response from anybody here. As far as this individual goes, I'm looking at the plates you see on his jacket there, and on his hips. I'm looking at that as either metal plates or hardened heavy leather, and I haven't decided on which. Yeah, in all fairness, this is something I've started turning to. Okay, and I know there are countries now that are walking away from the big businesses. They're turning to the smaller companies. Okay. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea there, YJ. The idea of putting a business card together with your talents list on the back. So when you're looking, you can go, here you go. The problem that I can see happening is people tend to number one, they either overstate their abilities, and this is something you got to be careful of. Thank you very much, YJ. I appreciate that. They either overstate their abilities or they forget about the little things. Many of the household talents, many of the talents that people use just trying to run a house are transferable into the business world. As a matter of fact, they're absolutely critical in the business world. But most people forget about this. Okay. Now, what I'm looking at here, this is just simply because of the fact this is a sword and I want it in the metal color. I will take your idea there, YJ. And we'll go with the heavy leather, the darker brown. Okay. But again, this really boils down to, because I finally, I've got somebody working on, I've got a company working on building an Amazon store for me that they're going to run. And yes, that means it's going to cost me a little bit more money than if I just got the Amazon store and did it myself. But the reality is by getting somebody else to handle the running of it, I don't have the headaches involved. And for me, that's kind of an important factor. Since every time I talk to somebody about computers, they go, well, that shouldn't happen like that. And I'm going like, no, but that is the way it does happen. And there's not much I can do about that. What do we got here? Do not get paint all over your hand. It really screws things up. Well, that's just it. Most people look at there are many people, that just they look at the homeless and they look at the people that are hard on their luck and go, they're useless. Greetings, Joe. How you doing? Oh, please tell me that you brought something home that was viable. Okay, Josie, if you're not actually in the chat room right now, Joe has just returned from hunting. Okay, you'll love this one, Joe. Oh. Saw nothing, but you're still gonna have a beer. Way to go. You'll love this one, Joe. I was talking to somebody the other day in a grocery store, right? And they went off on this issue about, hunting should be banned. Hunting, it should not be permitted anywhere anymore. It should be just completely banned. And people should only buy their meat in grocery stores where in grocery stores where no animals are killed. Now, I'm thinking, they are right. To the best of my knowledge, no animal is killed in a grocery store. I've yet to hear of anybody that actually killed an animal in the grocery store. I know a couple of people that have been killed in grocery, or know of a couple of people that were killed in grocery stores, but that's because the car ran through the door or ran through the wall. And what we're looking at here, these are just some of the things I've been looking at. Football, how you doing? I'm trying to figure out, I've been looking into this whole thing of world unity and how to make things happen a little bit more effectively because of one little detail. Mankind has, quite frankly, lost its way, in my opinion. Really badly lost its way. Okay. And it's something that has to be brought back into balance. Because if it's not brought back into balance, mankind is going to continue heading down a road that is just not working well. And that's just the sad reality of it. We take a look at it, Why, Jay? I forgot about that. There's only one place. Now, you don't live in Kelowna anymore, do you, YJ? You just came down here to visit, I'm presuming at this point. But no, people have forgotten how to communicate. I went to the bank up in Willow Park up here in Plaza 33, in Kelowna here. And somebody decided, quite by accident, I presume, to create a drive-through teller. They drove right through the wall. After the fact, the bank went and put in a new outside teller for it. Well, you had to do it before they tore it down. Sorry, I graduated out of Rutland. But the reality of it is, it was just a curiosity thing. But I'm trying to find a way to do a couple of things. Number one, I've got this massive saga that I'm writing, but there's got to be a way to take the information I'm sitting on out here and get it onto paper. Now, hopefully, like I said, this one company is building an Amazon store for me, whereby it will be easier to order the books, to order whatever else I'm working on, not the least of which is this. Now, these, I will tell you, are pricier than all get out, even in my eyes. Where is it? There it is. I've shown this before. Right. But this particular box, this is a gaming box. Now, bear in mind, that's gaming dice in there. And bear in mind, when I wrote the Yldrbac Chronicles, like I told people, the reality of it is it's written by a gamer for gamers. Okay. So when we take a look at this, it has metal dice in it. Okay, it's a complete set. But because these boxes are custom made, it cost me $250 to get them and to get each one made. Okay. Now, of course, they are limited edition, but even I'm not silly enough to go, oh, that's inexpensive. So I've got other ones being built. I've got other things I'm working on. I will be looking into getting t-shirts done, all of that. But again, one of the things that I really am focusing on is how do you get people to talk to each other in a positive fashion? You know, you know, yeah, that could be, we could go down a real, yeah, I agree with you there, Joe, but we could go down a real dark path on that one. Because if you take a look at it, and I know this would create havoc around your house. Lord knows it created havoc around mine. Okay, it tells you right in the church, right in the Bible rather. Wherefore two or more are gathered in my name, there am I. It said nothing about a building. Okay, nothing at all about a building. Actually, in all fairness, it did. And the day somebody builds a church, which one day I may, when I've got the money, I am planning on building. It's one of those funny little cross ideas I've got. Okay, but it tells you right in the Bible. Okay, and the church raised its arms up to under the heavens, or up under the sky, and raised its voice under the heavens above. Now, the second somebody builds a building that'll do that, I am undoubtedly going to go take a look at it. Now, if I were a multimillionaire, I'd have one built. I've already got it designed. Okay, I know exactly how to get it to work. I just don't have the money or the know-how to make it happen. Okay, although on the other hand, it may be an interesting idea to build a little model one. These are just, like, there's different things I've been looking at from that end. Okay, and it's like I've told people, do I believe in God? Absolutely. Probably more so than most people. Do I believe in Christ? Absolutely. By that definition, this makes me Christian. Do I go to church? Not a snowball's prayer. Absolutely there, YJ. The whole catch to it, and this is what people have forgotten. The old thing, you were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. But most people don't listen. They've forgotten how, in all fairness. Okay. And with that in mind, we have all kinds of neat little complications. Now, what do we got here? That one doesn't require it. I know I've got a number of different... No, I don't want to deal with that one. Let's not deal with those for the moment. What do you think? I look at it. Oh, YJ, I was talking about something here. This little critter here. If you're actually still running a game, this is directly for you if you're there, YJ. If not, come back and see it. But that and this is a water elemental. Okay. Now, I built a modification and came up with a blood elemental. Now, bearing in mind we are talking about science fiction, science fantasy, I did this for the campaign that I'm running. Okay. And these guys are really, really nasty. They're great for higher level adversaries. Okay, and all I did, in all fairness, was I took the water elemental as it was built, and instead of painting it blue, I just painted it red. But that reminds me, that can be painted blue and be done with it. But I work with science fiction, science fantasy, but the reality is there is a very close bond between science fiction and science fantasy and the whole idea of reality and how to interact. I'm just looking for my dark brown here. Not blue. And of course, I'm going to have fun trying to find it. Mind you, I wasn't exactly looking for it to start with. That's purple. Purple. There we go. No, that's espresso. There we are. Okay. I had it somewhere there. This is just one of those things I do and I do while I'm working on other things. Because, quite frankly, just sitting in one still didn't seem to work that well. Sitting in one place. Sure, put it down and forgot where it was. There we are. When you're looking at the world when we look at the way the world is right now, people have forgotten how to communicate. Okay. Yeah, one of the things they're watching with the blood elemental, because of the fact I was dealing with a whole bunch of people that were getting right carried away on the power levels, I turned around and made it hard to deal with from a magic standpoint, which absolutely created a complication for them. Almost killed all three of them. But it was my fault. I built the character. Okay, what I've taken to doing, though, is looking at the character, at the figures that I've got access to, and going, okay, let's build them so that when they're built, I can set them down and the people know this is what I'm dealing with. It's the same thing, in all fairness, when it comes to communication lines. If you're going to teach somebody to communicate, and you're going to talk about being clear, absolutely make certain you're being clear yourself. Okay, because if you leave it to the idea, well, they should know. Okay, you're going to run into all kinds of complications. Okay, and the reason I say going to is because I watch the way society's going, and what we've learned, what we have figured out, is that mankind is looking at each other going, I'm better than you are because I'm a different color. Or I'm better than you are because I've got better looking clothes. Okay. And the reality of it is, if clothes actually made a difference, if they actually changed people, then everybody wearing the same outfit would behave the same way. This is not the way reality works. Everybody still has their own outlook. You can dress me up, I can dress this way, or I can dress in a three-piece suit if I was actually that way inclined, and I would still stick my foot in my mouth quite readily. Now, that's just the reality behind the way that would work. Because in case you hadn't noticed, I don't actually filter what I say very much. Probably not a good thing in some people's eyes, but at least you don't have to try and figure out whether or not I was happy with something. But by working with each other, by actually working on communication lines and making them more, becoming more efficient with them, you'll end up finding that people actually are actually far more productive. The other thing I noticed is this. Okay, Western society has a brilliant idea compared to Eastern. Eastern society, from what I have gathered in talking to people, the owner or the CEO goes to the person pushing the broom and says, this is what I require. What do you need for me to get it? This is my goal. What do you require for me to get to my goal? Okay, now bearing in mind, obviously, if you're not paying your people enough for them to live, they're not sticking around anyway. Okay, but that's the Eastern way of doing it. Western seems to be the owner or the CEO will tell the manager, who tells the assistant manager, and it works all the way down to the floor. Well, this is one for you to take to your family, or take to if you've got a group of friends or a business. Okay, this is something you can do just to check the veracity of it. Do not take my word for it. Okay, test it for yourself. But in kindergarten, we used to play it, where you'd sit there and the teacher would write something down and whisper it to the first kid in line. And then 20 people later, they'd look at what came out the other end. I do exactly, YJ, that's exactly the same way I deal with it. It's like, look, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, ask. Or for that matter, like I will start off talking as I would anybody. And then if they don't seem to be getting it, then I, if you will, dumb it down and bring the conversation down to a simpler level for them. But then they have to do that in certain sciences as well. So one of the things that I'm finding is that people, like I said, they've forgotten how to communicate. And that result, we have a massive problem on our hands. But it is one that is curable if we put the effort into it. The question is, as individuals, are you interested in putting a different in changing it? Now, if I turn that down a little, you might be able to see more. Of course, that depends on whether or not you actually wanted it to. But because I don't sit still and do one thing at a time very well, in case you hadn't noticed. But if we do not start communicating with people, start being clear with each other, we're going to run into snags. Now, the neat part about it is I was talking to a professional videographer, and they told me flat out, I need to sit still. In order to be successful, I've got to sit still because it's distracting if you're moving. It probably is. On the other hand, it is real. So that's where I end up standing with it. I'm not perfect by any functional stretch, but I can tell you, if we do not remain true to ourselves, if you're not clear with people about your own boundaries, how can you possibly realistically expect them to actually understand it? If you look at it, I agree with you wholeheartedly there, YJ. Metaphors, if you think back, going back to the church, right? If you think back, Christ always talked in metaphors. He didn't say this is what you have to do. He simply laid it out in storyline. Okay. And from my standpoint, that worked really well. It really boils down to this. Work with the medium that makes sense. By the way, YJ, I'm going to show you here in just half a second. Because I decided, like I told you, you suggested going with the heavy leather, so I went that route. And by no means am I what you would consider a professional painter. I just do the best I can with what I've got. So we are making headway. But you have to look at the way that you're living your life. If you're content with the way your life is going, then this is good. But the way society is running right now, I fail to see how it can be seen as being good. There are too many complications that are showing up regularly. And I don't just mean in Canada or in the United States. I mean, globally, we have a massive problem. Okay. Because no matter where I talk to people from, they're running into the same problems. Prices are too high. They're not being treated well in their country or in their business. These are not relegated to one country. These are across the board. Okay, and that's where we have a problem. Once we realize that there really isn't as much difference between people as what we've been led to believe, once you realize that we are all very similar in that respect, that's when we will start making changes to the way society is run. Okay. Now, I love the people that turn around and go, it's the elite's fault. It's the government's fault. It's the media's fault. Okay. Wrong. Thanks for playing. Take a look at the way that you personally are treating people. Are you responding to their situation in a way that you would appreciate somebody responding to you in your situation? If the answer is yes, this is great. My suspicion in most cases is it is not that way. And I've seen examples across the board from every walk of life where people are not treating each other in a decent fashion. And certainly not in the way they personally would like to be treated. And yet, most people still look at it going, but they're different than I am. Absolutely, you are. Okay, absolutely, people are different. Okay, I just got back from the eye doctor. I'm waiting now. Well, just got back. Went this morning and went yesterday morning and had my eyes checked. And I am absolutely certain I'm going to get a call in the very near future, like in the next week, within the next week, where I'm absolutely certain they're going to tell me, "Oh, your eyesight is failing, and you've got a stigmata, you've got a stigma or an astigmatism." There we go. I've never had anybody tell me I've got stigmata. They have noticed that I bleed spontaneously from really odd places. But when you desire things to really change in your life, the trick to making that happen absolutely having a mood. It's in one heck of a mood. And it really is. People are reaching a point now where they're actually fed up with the behavior that they're being faced with. Only it takes getting things complicated so that people are all of a sudden feeling that they're losing out. It used to be way back before the Europeans got to North America, that the residents here, what I refer to as the North American Indians, they referred to themselves, by the way, as the people. Period. There was no ownership. But when the Europeans got, and prior to that, any change they were planning on making to society, to the neighborhood, to the area, cutting down a single tree, they would look at the impact that tree would make on that area 7 generations down the road. Now they don't look 7 minutes. Okay, nobody seems to look 7 minutes down the road, which, by the way, is a problem. At least from everything I've seen. You take a look at, when we take a look at a hillock and somebody goes, "Oh, let's remove all these trees." They ignore the root system that's holding the dirt in place. So you remove all the trees, then you get a couple of years of heavy rain, and all of a sudden all that dirt comes down the road it comes down in a mudslide. Okay. Now rest assured, it is not the poor people that are making the decision to wipe out the landscape. It's not their fault that decision is being made. And yet people keep complaining that the poor people are a lot of the problem. Well, you might want to reconsider that. When we're looking at problems, you got to remember, I have never seen in over 50 years, well, almost 50 years, I should say, because I started when I was 10. Okay. But in almost 50, I'm 59 now. So, 49 years, any communication I've ever seen has been a 50-50 problem. I've never seen an exception. And yet, no matter what walk of life people come from, people seem to have this incredible capacity to blame others for their misfortune. Okay. It was funny. I look at the RSP that I've got, and money has dropped there. How about if we don't do that? Whoever Sex Find is, quite frankly, please do not promote that here, because I do not like it. And if I had any idea how to get rid of you, I would. Don't get me wrong, I've got no problem with the site, but I don't need it posted here. Nightmare, or anybody for that matter. I'd love to talk to somebody that knows how to block those things from getting in here. Okay, frankly, that one I am at a complete loss for, and I don't have any use for them. I don't have anything against them, don't get me wrong. I just don't have a use for them in my chat room. I wonder. Maybe I can do something about that. Nope, don't need that. Oh, I think that might be what we're talking about. And there we go. Well, that takes out one at a time. But whoa. Did not do mean to do that there. My apologies, Nightmare. Did not mean to do that. Unfortunately, it moved at the same time. There we go. I appreciate that. My apologies for removing your one message there. That one message there, Nightmare. Didn't intend to, but like I said, still trying to figure this out. If I can figure out how to block him, I will. The unfortunate part is I'm still working on that side of it. Like I said, this is, technology and I do not get along at the best of time. And you'd be amazed how many times people have told me, well, it should work this way. The thing is, I don't have a problem with people that want to go there. Okay. Everybody has their own likes, their own dislikes. I just don't see the purpose of them for me, and I certainly don't need them in the chat room. I delete them on the messages that get left. And again, I haven't quite figured out how to do that, but we'll work on that. We'll put this guy down here for a minute and see if we can look at something. Oh. Okay. Let's see here. Stat of the one at a time there. Okay. Nope, that gets to open the image. That is not what I need. See, I found the three little dots. That works, but that only works for one at a time. Well, that would make that, in all fairness, would work. And that I wouldn't have a real big problem with, because let's face it, much as I paint you the small figures, I have no problem with people saying, hey, here's where you can get them. But yeah, I get a kick out of that. That's a real sidetrack from what I was looking at. But football is just said Pornbot was on a vegan live site. You'll love this one. I saw a post on Facebook. Okay. And this person said, yes, I am a vegan and I eat meat. We do exist. Now, my understanding of being a vegan is you do not eat meat or meat byproducts. Now, you can't be one and the other at the same time, in my opinion. Okay. Now, maybe I'm missing something. Now, on the other hand, you could be a vegan and eat meat because, quite frankly, they're carnivorous. But vegans are a whole different issue. He needs to be touched up a little, but here's the side effect of what you were suggesting there, YJ. And I'm going to be adding tan. I've got some areas there that I know where to add the tan as well. Uh-oh. That's okay. I'll sort that out. From my standpoint, it really boils down to this. So many people, like, I've got no problem with people having their own opinion. That's the easy part. Yes. It's a question of realizing that working together, we can actually make this a better world. It's just a bit problematic trying to get people to realize that it doesn't have to be just one way, except for one little detail. We've got to treat each other the way we desire to be treated ourselves. Okay. Now, when I get done, with this video, then I'll go back to writing again. And I've got a whole pile going on right now. If you look, I think that's there. Yeah. Right here, it does so. All of these, this whole stack of paper here, of files here, all of this are handwritten hard copies of parts of the Yldrbacian Chronicles that I've got to go through. Yes, I agree with you there, Joe. My ex wouldn't actually let me go to church. She said flat out, "You're not going." I said, "What's the problem?" She goes, "You'll challenge the pastor on his, on his sermon." And I'm thinking, like, yeah, knowing me, I probably would. Hey, Ange, glad you made it. I've been dealing with a whole lot of things here. A whole lot of different issues that are very complicated or very involved is more to the point. They're actually not that complicated. But what I'm finding is too many people are finding too many ways to say they're different from somebody else. And there is no question there are differences amongst people. This is an absolute necessity in today's world, in any world. And rest assured, every species I've run into has the same problem in that respect. Every single one of them has the same problem. They all look at each other and going, I'm different, I'm unique in my own way, which is very true. Okay, the reality of it is that we have to take a look at it and go, if you desire this world to start working as a functional world and bring back peace to this world. By the way, war will never bring peace. It brings quiet. Okay, because let's face it, people tend to get a little quiet when they're being shot at. They don't want to get found. This is why, this is one of the reasons why when you went out hunting, Joe, the deer didn't stand up and say, "Here I am." Somehow they've got a communication line that tells them when people are looking to shoot them. And they're no more interested in that than people are. So I look at this going, there's got to be a way to help people see that getting along will work. So what I decided I was going to do was do a little research and see what was pulling communication apart, where the real hiccups were. And what I found is that people have forgotten that no matter what walk of life you come from, no matter where you are in the economic standing, you're still the same as the next person in line. And once people start to realize this and start to accept it, that's when we start getting functional communication. But is it complicated? Is it problematic trying to get it to work that and trying to get people to see that? The answer is definitively yes. Okay, many people completely miss that idea. And that's where we run into an interesting snag, is that we have to realize, I got a kick out of it. I found out something the other day. It was just priceless. There is a government, I don't know which one it is, some of you probably know better than I do, that is now setting up. Yeah, I made that mistake, Joe. I was baptized Roman Catholic, raised broadband Protestant. As in, I grew up on a military base. Every 3 or 4 years, we'd get a new pastor of a different denomination. But a friend of mine, a chap I knew, he went down a really interesting road. And he goes, I'm a practicing Catholic. Well, he caught me on the wrong day. And I looked at him and I said, so what's missing? I said, I'm Protestant. I know lots of Hindus, lots of Muslims. I know all kinds of pagans. That's just what they are. You're just practicing. What are you missing? This went over like an absolute lead balloon. He was not very happy with me. I think I said something wrong, only I'm not entirely certain what it was. Probably the fact I asked him what he was missing. So it was an interesting turn of events from that standpoint. At least from my perspective. From his, I don't know how well it went over. Probably not that well, because he got really mad at me. But no, we have to realize there's nothing wrong with having a different religion. And this is something people have to realize. That from what I was told years ago, there were 7 primary religions. Now, I have no idea how accurate that was. I do know, I look at least assuming the net is correct, which leaves a lot to be desired on the assumption side, that the Christian religion has broken into worldwide 45,000 denominations. Not exactly a unified approach. Okay. At least not from what I've seen. And what people have to realize is that if you're going to make things change, if you're going to alter the way your life is going, you've got to start communicating with people in a positive fashion. In a very clear-cut fashion, as it were. I was looking for something here, because it just dawned on me the color I wanted to do it. This little thing. Nasty little critter. Now, I know YJ will recognize this. But just dawned on me. This little critter here. Okay. Not a nice little critter. YJ, I'm sure, will recognize it. But I figure I got a whole pile of brown here. And brown works out very nicely for this particular character, for this particular creature. And all we do is just get him painted. And again, this boils down to being able to take a look at them and set them on the mark and say, there it is. Now, some of the creatures I'm dealing with, I'm having to build as I go along, like design the stats for them. Most of them, not so much so. But this is working quite nicely in my eyes. It just boils down to an issue of, again, this really boiled down to getting on here. And, when you're talking about the way people get along, okay, when we're talking about a given religion or practicing a given religion, it's like, I love the people that say, I'm a doctor or I'm practicing medicine. Well, if you're practicing medicine, I'm thinking this may not be a good sign. If you're a doctor, this means you know what you're up to. At least that would be the theory. And from everything I'm looking at, I prefer a doctor that actually knows what they're doing. Although with my system, it's a challenge at best for them, because things don't always work the same way for me that they do for other people. But we have to realize when we start talking about racial differences, okay, yes, there are racial differences. There absolutely are. But the fact they're different races does not mean they're different species. And this is what we have to look at. You've got to start looking at the connection between people. Okay, you've got to start taking a look at the things that make them similar. I.e., it doesn't matter what walk of life people come from. Doesn't matter what species. And I can tell you this from practical experience. Even my son was witness to it. Seagulls have a heck of a sense of humor. They're funnier than heck when you listen to them. And yes, they do laugh. They're odd, but they do laugh. Now, that's always fun. I used to hang around in cemeteries. I just don't leave the house now, and I don't have a cemetery in my house. But you're seeing there's a couple of possibilities there, Joe. Okay. One, you may be seeing, just a curiosity thing, but the orb that you saw, the light that you saw, did it travel from one, did you watch it travel from one grave site to another? You know, I've seen that happen before. It's great to watch. Yeah. See, yeah. See, here's the thing. A lot of people think that when you die, that's where you stay. Well, the soul doesn't actually stay in the grave. Okay. It actually gets quite a lot of maneuverability. Now, I know with my own father, he told me that they weren't having a gravesite. And he was trying to be dead serious about it. And he goes, we've decided we're not having a gravesite. I says, not that I care. Not that it bothers me, but why not? He says, because I don't want you kids tied to a gravesite. I never even thought about it. I looked at him and I said, Dad, you're not going to be tied there. Why would we? Why would I be tied there? But from my standpoint, I've got a different outlook on life and death. I know that. That has something to do with the fact that I've been over the other side so often. It's kind of like a second home. I just don't fear the place. It's an interesting place to go and visit some of my old friends that have passed away. But when I'm talking old friends, I mean ones that passed away long, long ago. Okay. Frankly, I remember the gladiatorial uprising, the revolt from ancient Rome. I remember the witch hunts. I remember the whole mess in Sodom and Gomorrah. Not to mention the mess at the bottom of Mount Sinai. And this is one of the reasons why I will tell people wholeheartedly that a lot of what is in the Bible is accurate. I have not personally read the Quran and the Quran yet. I've got an English translation of it, but I haven't personally read it as of yet. But from talking to these people, and from talking to people that actually follow it, essentially it seems to have the same information. So I mean, I'm looking at it going, there is a lot of similarity, no matter who we are talking to, between the different people and the different religions that people are following. But we got to remember, every single person we're dealing with, they start in the same place. And never mind how you got to where you currently are. Every single one of you is right here, right now, and this is the only time in life that we can change anything. Because even if you postpone it for another 6-8 months, okay, when you get around to doing whatever it is you're aiming for, it's going to be in the here and now. Okay. And, like I've looked at a lot of different races. And by the way, I can't show them to you right now because I have no idea how to do it. Okay. But I've just had another batch of the races for Races of the Worlds brought up. This evening, I'm going to be looking at that and seeing how many I have left. I know I've still got probably 10 or 15 left that still have to be dealt with. And that's okay. I don't mind. Okay, they are coming along nicely. And the idea is still the same. It's just taking some time. And frankly, it takes money on my part, which can be a bit of a challenge. So I'm looking at getting all of that done. And this is why I've been working on this thing for as long as I have. I figure sitting here staring at the wall, isn't doing me much good. At least I'm not right now. Like I look at the way the world is running right now, and I go, okay, what are we doing that could be done better? And this is something I am striving to incorporate into the last half of the Return to Paradise. Okay, is some working ideas that are viable, at least according to modern understanding, in order to actually rebuild society after it collapses. And frankly, the way our world is going right now, it's a pretty. Oh, well, that's okay. The swamp and the cemetery, they're pretty much the same thing. One's just more wet, just wetter than the other. Yes, that's an overstatement. I realize that. Yeah, I don't like getting that wet, so I don't tend to go. I don't like getting that lost either. So I tend not to go very far anymore. I went down, YJ knows this one. I went into Orchard Park Mall today, which is in Kelowna here. 300 stores. And I could not keep my bearings straight. It's a good thing I had my son with me because he could. My sense of direction, to say the least, is not very well developed. As a matter of fact, I'd say it was a bit of a shambles. And see, we are making headway. This one will get finished off probably because this one only has a couple of colors I have to worry about. So it will probably get finished tonight. I think that's actually a really good goal. Because I've only got, like I said, did I make a mistake there? Nope. It's only going to require a couple of different colors to do it right. So I'm just going to set it down and let it dry. And where are we here? Okay. Now, the one thing that we have to look at, when you're looking at society, when we're looking at the way people are, understand every single living corporeal entity, and for that matter, the incorporeal ones, are all in exactly the same boat. You all are starting from right where we are. Yeah, I remember that as well there, YJ. Matter of fact, in my case, I still remember it was Woolworths that was downtown and then became the Bargain Barn, and then it went out too, down on Bernard. There's no question that life changes, that as we get older, things shift around us. And since you cannot lock things into the past, okay, we have to, I remember, I think Eaton's was actually in Orchard Park originally, and then it closed out as well. Eaton Sears is still there, but, life is going to change. And the way things are going, and this is something I do have to take a look at, but right now, I'm looking at what is actually making things happen. What can we do to turn this society completely around and get it back on track? But it is going to require effort on all of our parts. Well, that's sad. I didn't hit enter, I don't think, so we're going to hit enter and see if that goes up. Well, that's a little late in the day. Take that in before I even opened and forgot to hit enter. But what I'm looking at now is, okay, I'm looking for viable ways that we can take the world, and this is literally tying it straight into the Yldrbacian Chronicles, which, by the way, I do have a website up for that as well, which is Yldrbac.com. Okay, like I'm starting to get things out in the open, but I'm looking for different things that have to be put back into place. And this is something I would love people to drop me a line with ideas in what really needs to be returned, what we've really got to return to in order to make society work a little more effectively. Now, from my standpoint, okay, now I've been on this for 2 hours. I may be back later today. I wouldn't bet on it. But I will be back again. I'd love to say thank you all for joining me. And, until we meet again, do take care of each other. Take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.